Well, this is Baruch here on the Tikkun Elevator Kollel, and today is the fourth day of the week of Parshas Vayakel. It's a special week. What we're looking over here is a little depiction which comes from the book by Aryeh Kaplan called the Sefer Yetzirah, which is actually the oldest by all hold. This is the writing of Avraham Avinu. Now it's interpreted by Aryeh Kaplan, and it's really something to read. I want to come over here and show this little piece here and just try to go over an idea as we cut down our ambient music. There we go. Trying a little ambient space music, but it's hard to find music that I really like, and we'll keep working on it and hopefully be a little bit entertaining as we go. The only thing I want to show about this, and we all understand that there are 10 spheros over here and Kesser's the top one. The concept that I wanted to say is that each one of these spheros is also a partzuf, which means what? It means that inside of this partzuf called Keter is a Kesser, the Kesser, is a Chachma, the Kesser, a Bina, the Kesser, and going all the way through the same list is in each one of these. So very often when you get into Kabbalah and you start talking, for example, he talks about the Kesser, you need to really know where he's talking about, because he's always talking about a flow of light from the great pool which is at the top and leads the direction of all the light to flow down to the malchus of the particular parts of that we're talking about. That was just an idea. It was a little bit picked up from the shir this morning on the Sifra D'Tzniuta, and it's something that we need to keep in mind. Now we're going to go through a few little things here, and now we're going to read the Zohar from the top, just from the top, across the top of it. The Zohar says, Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Yossi, Havayasve Leil Yachad. Now, if you can't see this and you don't know, it's on page Kuf Tzadi Aleph. Okay? And he says, Rabbi Elazar, so he said, Leil Yachad, V'kom is asking Ba'araisa, and they were learning Torah. Adlo Isplig Leilya, but this is the period of time before midnight. Adahochi Karagavra, then they heard the sound of the rooster crow. Brichu Birchusa, and they made the bracha on the crowing of the rooster. So there's a little bit that's an addendum apparently here that's added in. I'm not sure, but we'll bring it up and read it anyway. So it says, Amalei Rebbe Elazar said to him, Hashtahu zimne de kudra barichu, all begins at the Eden. This is the moment that the Kodesh Baruch Hu enters into the Garden of Eden, l'hishta'asha in tzedikaya, in order to celebrate, be festive with the tzeddikim. Amale Rabbi Yossi, the Rabbi Yossi said to him, Amay mis atshaya kudra barichu. Why is he getting so involved with this? What's the reason for the festival now? So he says that now that's at the time from which he's calling that the sound of the rooster crowing is the sign of midnight has come. Bacha Rebbe Elazar cried, and he said, and he said, come and see. And up until this point, Kodesh Baruch has been shaking the 390 different levels of heaven. He strikes them too. And after that, he cries. He cries because of the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash. And when he starts crying, 2 tears come from the eyes of a Kodesh Baruch Hu, and they fall into the great sea. And he remembers his children in the midst of the tears. Begin the Slal Sitrin Ispelig Loya. So the Zohar wants to say, you have to understand that the night is divided into 3 different parts. Besreser Shate the Havid Rishimim Bay. So this is from the 12 hours that are impressed in it. We understand that the summertime days are much longer than the normal days. So it really goes about what is the 12 parts of the nighttime versus the 12 parts of the daytime. So ve'inun shate the matosvan the yamama inun. So then when there are times of the day that are added onto the night, in other words, the days are longer than the nights are, he says they're still considered to be day. And they're not considered to be 12 hours, to be part of the nighttime at all. Bar tracer the inun delay. Only the 12 hours that belong to the nighttime. Now, what am I trying to say? And I made a little drawing, but it's really not so great. Let's say, for example, I took something that the nighttime is 10 hours long. That's all you have of nighttime. From the time that the sun sets, or how we ever counted, we counted the Shlosh Kohadim, is only 10 hours. This is the time during the wintertime when the sun is not so strong. But we divide it by 12 anyway. So we divided 12 into 10. I have my little handy calculator here. And let's get 10 divided by 12 equals 8.33. So this comes out to be 8.33. That means that each one, if we took 12 and we multiplied it by 8.33, we're going to get the exact amount of hours that there are in the nighttime. That's going to be 10. So each one of those 10 hours, those 12 hours, boy, this 12 hours is going to be, let me just see if I got this, 8.33 times 12 will get you back to 10, because there are only 10 actual hours. So it's really just what you do is you just divide whatever amount of nighttime you have by 12, and that'll tell you how long 1 hour is. I guess that's the best way I could say. Now let's go on into this and see a little bit more. Keep continuing onwards. Where were we? One moment, please. Okay, we're over here. So he said, begin to Tla Sitrin Ispliglelia. The night is divided into 3 parts. Betrayta Shante the Hava Rishimin Bay. So there's 12 different marks that are made on it that are seen there. And if you add onto it, that is the some of the daytime onto the night, but they can't be part of the night. The night really only refers to the dark period. It's not considered to be daytime, nighttime. Bar tracer the in and delay, only the 12 divisions that really pertain to the night. So he said, Ve'inun tracer is plago l'sla citron. So as we said before, the 12 hours, we call them, I call them hourly hours. They're not necessarily 60-minute hours, as we're saying. Sometimes they could be an 8.33-minute hours. So he said, Ve'inun tracer is plago l'sla citron. They're divided into 3 different categories. Uslash mishirian, the malachim kedishin is plago, Be'inan Sla Citron, and there are 3 different, he says, Mishirian, encampments of Malachim. That means that angels are, as we have said many times before, are really channels that push the Shefa downwards. Kedishim, or upwards, either way. B'shibach of the Malachim, Kedishim is Palago, that they get divided up, Be'inan Sla Citron. So the 3 different sections of Malachim we are talking about. Mishirian Kadama Ismano Ba'arbashate Kamais. So the first encampment, the first group, so this is like an army group that are ready to go. They go on the first night, the first section, in other words, the first 4 hours of the night, and the Shirus of the Lelia, at the beginning of the love, the Shavachal, the Marechemet give praise to their master. Umma Ka'amri, what do they say? La Hashem Ha'aretz HaMaloa, they say, you know, Hashem, our world is yours. You are the master of the world. You fill the world. Kihu al yamim yasada, because he established it on the seas. Mi ya'alabach Hashem. Then they see the next verse, which says, Mi ya'alabach Hashem, who should be gzeicha, to be able to go up to the mountain of Hashem. The kikapayim, a person has clean hands, a bar love, and a pure heart. My time adah. So what's the reason for this? Begin to kad lelia parish godfoy al alma. So we have to understand this, that when the nighttime begins to spread its wings over the world. In other words, that consumes the daytime. And now we have this, if you see on Shabbos, that when we're talking about Uforos Aleinu Sukkah Shlomacho, we have that phrase. It's the same idea. The spreading the night of Shabbos to come into us. Here we're talking about a regular night. So Chavakaden, Kol B'nei Alma Ta'amim Tamba de Musa. Again, I'll read it again. What is the reason? Begin to kadlel ye parish God for you al alma, because when the nighttime spreads its wings over the world, then at that moment, call b'nei alma, all of the people of the world, tamim, time of the musa, they begin to taste the taste of death. V'nafgi nishma cycle the salkula elia, and their souls come out. What does it mean? Their souls come out. Nishma cycle. Now, when they say nishma cycle, now we've had shirim on this before. A neshama is not an independent entity. It's an aspect of refracted light of the Ein Sof Baruch Hu. And this is the highest, most pnimistic, most purest aspect of the light of the Ein Sof Baruch Hu that is inside of us. It's surrounded by Ruach. And Ruach is surrounded by Nefesh. So the Nefesh corresponds to our bodies, and we are alive. And the Ruach corresponds to our breath, which we are breathing. But on the other hand, our consciousness is gone because we're getting an understanding of what neshama means. So that the consciousness that coming from the neshama leaves. He says v'nishma cycle, the salka la'ela, and it goes up into the higher worlds. Ve'ina malachim kaimim, but the malachim are still there. And as these souls are going up, because amrei miya ala b'Hashem, and this is when they say their phrases. Who is Zohar to be able to go up to the mountain of Hashem? Har Hashem, da har habayis. When it says the mountain of Hashem, it's talking also about the mountain where the Beis HaMikdash stands. Makum kadshu do ezris Yisrael. And then he said to a place of holiness. What is that place? That's the Azara. That's the place where the Jews gather. Kagavda del elo hachinami l'sata. So what we have up above, we have down below. So now we have to listen to Maktam B'Davash. We have to see what exactly is the detail of what we learned, and we'll try to pick it up and just go through. So here it says, Rebbe Lozav, Rebbe Yosef, Rabbi Yosef, Leil Yechad, Bekom is asking Barais, and they were learning Torah, Oskim B'Torah, Ad La Isplig Leilya, and they did this at the first half of the night, before midnight. Ad Hachi Karagavra, but then they heard the sound of the rooster. Brichu Birchusa. Besocha limudim, while they were learning Kara Hatarnagol, the rooster crowed. Baruchu brachos habirchos hanosin the sech bina. So therefore, they made that bracha hanosin the sech bina. But the Rebbe Loza then said to them, Rebbe Loza said to Rebbe Yossi, Hashtahu zimna de kutshabarichu, all begins to the Eden ishta'asha im tzedikaya. This is the moment, this particular moment, when that rooster crows and the split in the night takes place. He says that's the moment when as Kodesh Baruch Hu enters into the Garden of Eden, and obviously he says if we hear the word Garden of Eden seems to be always referred to Lashon Bina. So over here we have to understand that Kodesh Baruch Hu is talking about Chochmah coming into that, or something higher, or maybe even higher than that. He says that entering into this higher spiritual force to rejoice with the tzaddikim in the Gan Eden. The Rebbe Yossi said to Mishal, the Rebbe Lazar, he asked him, so why is the Kodesh Baruch Hu coming here at this time of day to do this? So the Zohar goes on, it's the Baruch Rebbe Lazar, so Rebbe Lazar cried, and he said this. He said, the Rebbe Yossi said to Rebbe Yossi, Chazi ad hashta Kodesh Baruch Hu is dazachlas ma v'sishin rikim ubatishbo. On the first part of the night, that is until the time when midnight comes and when the rooster crows, from the beginning of the light of the nighttime until midnight, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, his dazach herish machmas taikif din. So he said, then before I get to the next part, he says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is shaking. He's clanking around. Why? Because of the tremendous amount of din of the 390 firmaments. Din. And he strikes them. Why does he strike them? So that they should pour din out. That's what's going on at the first part of the night. Kodesh Baruch Hu was pushing din. Din is the part of the first part of the night. Mispar Shen Sadi. So where'd you get this number 390? He says Eight Minyan Shemaim. Add up Shemaim. Is 340 350, and 40 more is 390. Ukaminyan Shechina. Now, Shemayim Shechina, I understand, is in the Yichud, because Shechina usually refers to Malchus, and Shemayim usually refers to Zer Anpin, but hey, I don't know. This is what he says. Shemayim Ukaminyan Shechina. Shechina? Ha-Shechina? Not Shechina. Ha-Shechina. Ha-Shechina is 305 plus 20 is 325, plus 10 is 335, plus 50, 385, plus 5 is 390. You're back to 390. 390 is also the gematria of 10 times the word Tau. Now, what that does for me, I don't know, but let's go on. What do they cry over? They cry, what are the tears that a Kodesh Baruch Hu cries? Is crying on the destruction of the temple. Behind this Oros Adin Barachmim Al Yisrael B'lim Kol Mitzorehim. This is that at this time then, we see that there were the arousal of the din, of the Hisoros Adin Barachmim, that you are putting sweetness onto the din. You notice that in the Zohar never talks about destroying din. You can't. Creation is made out of din. It's not din that's the problem. It's the din of the din that's the problem. If you could attach sweetness to the din, then you got something. And this is then you have the possibility of yichud. And this is always what the Zohar is looking at. V'orid trin diman l'go yam rabba. And as a result of that, 2 tears come out for the great sea, into the great sea. V'horid shtei d'ma'os l'yam hagodol. Heim sod his this base midas adin. This is the awakening, the arousal of the 2 midas adin, a gevur v'ahod shadin ba mishteihem. And let's see if I could get this up again real quick, so we could just see it. This is that if you look at the left side, we always say that the Rav always says that the left side represents the side of din. It's called Baga, after the first letters of these names, Bina, Gevura, and Hod. So he said, you want to say there's 2 tiers. One comes from Gevura, and the other one comes from Hod. That's one possibility that he wants to say. There's another possibility. There are 2 other kinds of making din. Now, he's not going through all the different parts of what these dinim do and so on and so forth, but I'll give you the best I can. He said, V'horid shtei d'maos the yamagodol, and they could be the arousal of these 2 midos, which are Gevura and Hod. HaGevura v'hahod shachadin ba mishteichen, because they both contain din, and the din that ultimately winds up coming at us is coming from them. Inami, or here's another idea. Heim base bechinas dinim shall shachu par. Now, what is that talking about? So let me see. I made a little thing here, try to help us out, but you know, my thing is really always Russian style and a little bit sloppy. So let's take like this. The word din. Okay, can you see what I'm putting on? The word din is Daled Yud Nun, is a gematria of 64. Now we understand that there are 5 gevuros, which are 5 dinim, which are contained in the das of Zer Anpin and spread throughout his body and ultimately wind up in the nukva. The nukva is completely made out of din. That, if you take those 5 gevuros and you multiply it the gematria of the word din, you get to the number 320. Now this is a special kind of din. They're called the shach, the 320 dinim. Now he says that's one kind of din, and let me go back over here and pick this up again before I show you the next time. The next one. And the next one is the 280 dinim. What is that? So the Zohar says that you have 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet. This is actually the Rab saying this. You have 22 letters in the Hebrew alphabet, and there are 5 additional letters which we call mansapach. This mansapach, that's how we pronounce it. It's the mem sophis, the nun sophi, the tzadid sophi, the pei sophi, and the nun sophi. Now you come along and you can follow this after me if you want. You add them up. The mem is 40, the nun is 50, the tzadi is 90, the pei is 80, and the chaf is 20. Comes out to be the gematria of 280. That's the par dinim. These are sweetened dinim, but they're dinim nonetheless. And you'll see them in other places in the Zohar and other places in the literature that talks about this, because all is very important in terms of the yichud of Kudsha Barichu Shkinte. So so he says that's another possibility of what the 2 tiers represent. Let me see if I can find the place. Here we are. So he says, V'hayam agodol, what's the yam agodol? Who's sod ha-malchus the chochma? It's the malchus of chochma. Now that's where I told you, again, that each one of this take Chachma, Chachma is actually not just a sphera, but it's also a partzuf. So therefore, there's going to be what did he say? He says that the Yama represents the Malchus. Just imagine that this drawing is inside of here. And this Malchus, which is inside of there, that's where this Yama Gadol is located. He said, V'sham heim yordin benim tacos. There they go down and they do a sweetening job. And when that sweetening comes, which is a lashon rachmanis, the Zohar as Bonav mitoch bechiyaso, he remembers his children in the middle of his crying, and he arouses himself. He arouses himself with the midas of rachamim. Let's try to get through it. It's a little bit more. Begin the slas sitrin ispalaglolia. So I'll go through as fast as I can of the parts that I don't need to repeat. So he says the night is divided into 3 parts. Betreter shati the chaver b'shimin bay, and there are 12 different markings. In other words, what's the right word? Markings. I could just say markings, dividing one section from the next. And I went through in the beginning explaining how you get these are showers zamanios. That's what they're called, hourly hours. So we figure like this, you just divided the night into 12, and how many hours there is, that's what you got. But you'll add something onto it. These are days that get added onto the day. If there's going to be more daytime, it's going to be added onto the day. Night is always night. Day is always day. It doesn't matter how much one is, one or the other. Each one of them is a 12. So v'lo ishta it's chashviva leilo bar tresa the inin leil. Below nechshava b'shas alayla el yud beis shalosh shehem shalo. They always divide the night into 12, and those are the 12 hours that belong to it. Kilo olam shalos alayla heim rak yud beis shalosh shavos. They're always the same amount in each one of the hours. Keneged yud beis osios shel shem adni, which I didn't write out this of the name of Adni, when you put it in a milui, aleph lamed fe, daled lamed daled lamed tov, etc. B'milui shebemalchus hashalet is balayla. So let me just come over here and fill in a little bit that I worked on I just stopped this and I worked on this a little bit. Being in Tracer is polig the tlas citron. So let's look at the matik of the bash. And he said, "Below nechshabach of the showers alayla ela yud beis showers." There are only 12 hours in the nighttime. You can't make it 15 or 14 or 9 or whatever you want. It's 12. Shehem shalom. They belong to the night. Kila olam showers alayla. Because how do we know that 12? I mean, there's a lot of different ways to get to 12. Maybe not a lot. But the astrologers use one, the 12 tribes, that's another idea. All these 12s that come from different places. He says that this refers to the Yud-Beis showers of the night, and they refer to the Yud-Beis osios of the Shem Adni, B'milui, Shebamalchus, Hashalet is Balayla. So what we're seeing here is the name Adni, right? We could take that name, and we could divide it, we could spell it out into Aleph Lamed Fe, Dalef Lamed, Daled Lamed Tov, Nun Vav Nun, and Yud Vav Daled. Now I need to note more of these things, but if you count them up, there are actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. There are 4 sets of 3. And he says there were 3 sets of 4. Earlier. Let's go on. The Inun tracer is peleg l'tlas citron. So they spread into 3 sides. So these 12 spreads into 3. They're all completely equal parts. And he says gimel pamim daled. And it's 3 times 4. Uslas Masharian, the Malachim Kadishin Ismenun Be'inun Tlas Citron. And there are Shlosh Machanos, there were 3 different camps of Malachim, one assigned to each one of these sections. Kadoshim Nismano Be'edel Shlosh Chelke Halayla. So now I'm using the word sections. I like that. So he says, Umafarsham Achaz La'achaz. So now we're going to explain these 3 different times. That's what the Zohar wants to do today. We won't go through them all. So he says, Umafarsham Achaz la'achaz. Mefamar meshiri yachakadima ismanu ba'arba shate kamaisa de shirusa the lelia l'shvacha de marehu. He said, the malachim shall machna rishona. So the first encampment of angels. Nismana, they are appointed into the position ba'ahu shalos rishonos in the first section of the night, which is 4 hours. Shal techilas alayla, the beginning of light, the shvach l'koinen, in order to the shabeach, to give praise to their maker. The malka amrai, what do they say? What is the praise they give? Hashem haaretz umolo, Hashem fills the whole world. He is the world, belongs to him, and he fills it. Kihu al yamim yisada, because he is been established on the seas. What does that mean? And then it goes on and it says on the rivers he prepares rivers. Then it says who's Zohar to be able to go up to the mountain Hashem. Who can stand in the place of his kedusha? One who has clean hands, pure heart. That he didn't waste his soul, he didn't do his things and stupid things. Never swore in what's the right word? Falsely. And then they go on. All this process of these prayers, these praises go on the whole night long. Oh, maybe Shema Omrim B'Chozrim B'Omrim Ozecha B'Chem Shekol Adal Shabbos. Maybe these particular pesukim are the ones that are said over and over and over again. And the Matak writes V'Hin L'Kumon. Later on, we're going to see Nira She'ein Misaimim as Kol Hamizmor, that they actually don't finish that whole kapitel Tillim. So in my time, so now the Zohar comes and say like this. Now I got to see if I can make this work out of the page. Okay, better best I can do. He says, my time, so what's the reason they say this mizmor? Brahma begin to kad lelya frish God for almost. So we like that phrase. The fish kashach halayla the hainach of malchus. That is, malchus is represented by nighttime. When she begins to shalethes balayla pareses kanfech, as she spreads her wings al ha'olam over the world. When she says her kanfeh, her wings, she means her agents, her armies, her hosts that are going to go into the world. Hamamunim al hanagas dini halayla, that are appointed over the way that the night will work. Kaden called b'nei alma tamim tamid the musa. When that happens, then all of the people of the world will taste the taste of death. Us call ha'olam tamim tam misa. So here he's talking about the 4 hours at the beginning of the night before midnight. Kichashina hi achar echad mishishim b'misa, because sleep is 1/60th of death. Benafkin the shmasaychel the salkel the elcha, and the souls start going up. Nashmo nifshvo sechem yotzim keden, then kadei, go out kadei la'alos lamala, to be able to go upwards. The yesod, the malchus, and enter into the yesod of malchus, the hischadesham, to become renewed there. So biyadaka ad gidruchi, which is the secret of that phrase, and I put my ruach in your hands. Ve'ina malachim kaimin, ve'ilach malachim shehin bale dinim. So those malachim which are full of din, omdim umashgichem b'maasechem, they're watching this. They're watching the deeds of people. Shal haneshamos im heim roya ruuyos la'alos. They're there looking at the neshamas as they're in the process of wanting to go higher. They're looking to see whether or not they're fit to be able to do that. So therefore, so therefore they say, in regards to those souls that are worthy of being able to go up, look at this person, look at this neshama who has the ability to be able to go up to the mountain of Hashem. Mi hu roy la'alos bar Hashem. V'amar har Hashem da har habayis. When it says har Hashem, it means the Temple Mount. Hu har habayis, but not the Temple Mount on this world in Jerusalem, but he means the Jerusalem shalamala. Lamala. Look at negdo choya har habayis lamata. And opposite that is a har habayis down in our world. The nesham nekneses and neshamas, and this is where the neshamas go at nighttime. Al makom kadsho, to the place of His holiness. Da Ezra's Yisrael, this is the court of the Jews. Ezra Yisrael Lamala, we're talking about the court of the Jews, that is a specific entrance for us. Ugunegdo Choya Ezra Yisrael Lamata, and corresponding that there is also, I'm not getting this, there is always an Ezra Yisrael Lamata. Kagamda the Laelo Hochi Nami the Lasata. So what you have up above, you have it down below as well. Ki kal mashi yesh bebeis hamikdash shal ma'ala. So because all the qualities that you find in the base of mikdash up above, shal ma'ala b'makom ha'hechalos, in the place of the palaces and the entrances to the different levels of coming upward, sheyesh sham mizbeach mikdash, because in those spiritual world there's also a mizbeach, and there's also a mikdash at every world. The Kohen, there's also a Kohen. So we have also down here different rooms, different patterns of entrance into higher and more penimistic places in the base of Mikdash. Dusham Makrivim Carbon and Neshamos, and this is where we bring the offering of the Neshamos. Interesting idea. Hatahoros, Hachayos Adayim Ba'olam Hazeh. So this is where he brings the Neshamos to the Tahoros. This is where a person comes to be completely purified, that are still alive, living in this world. This is Baruch Fleischman, Tikkun Elevator Kollel, Shir today.